Welcome to another episode of War Hero to Superhero. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and now you can find us on the Easy Way Wall streaming live. And also, if you don't have a chance to watch it live, you can go to the app Podopolo to gamify your podcast and go over and get some amazing gifts and rewards and learn ways to actually take your podcast to the next level and actually apply on what you're going over and working through. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Faust, and today we're back in the living room. So this is week 2, and we are celebrating freedom just like we celebrated in the 4th of July, and we're celebrating that with talking about freedom in the living room and talking about boundaries. So we're going to jump into that briefly to visit that topic. If you want to go learn more, you can go over and go to boundaries.me and we'll show you the reference as we're going talking. So let's jump in. I got a little story for you. I became a dad roughly about 12 years ago, and I wanted my sons and my daughters to go be the best kids they could go over and be. So I was trying to go over and mature. But the thing was, is I had no boundaries typically in my marriage, and I had no boundaries with my parenting, and my parenting was circumstantial and would keep vacillating forth. What I wanted is to kids to quote and be well behaved, following God and going over and thriving well. Well, what I got was kids that were just emotionally aloof and go over and just doing things out of circumstance. So what I reaped is what I sowed in the early years of parenting until I got a reboot in my marriage, which now I'm now trying and learning to go over and apply in my living room. So I wanted to share some of the boundaries that Dr. Henry T. Cloud talks about, and I want to go over and help you guys to go over and apply it. Now, I'm not the residential expert. I've just taken a 30,000 foot view of this, and I'd highly recommend to go to boundaries.me and go over and read his resources, but we'll touch it a little bit because arranging the deck chairs doesn't go over and help. You can quote unquote modify your behaviors, but if you're not modifying your heart, it's just going to go over and be a facade. And then your kids won't know how to go over and apply that. And a lot of these things have to be modeled. What values are caught, not taught. So when you arrange the deck chairs and you do it for a short season, it doesn't go over and last. Have you ever been there, gone over and tried to change things and shore things up in your parenting, and you're like, my kids are not going over into the direction that I'm wanting them to go? Well, I want you to go over and think, what do you think happens when you go over and do this? Because when you go over and do this and actually live this out, it can be a miraculous thing, but it's something that has to be a head and a heart change. Our biggest downfall, my biggest downfall in this was not taking ownership of myself and how I responded. And I tended to react. So my kids, in their own, reacted in ways that I did. So if I didn't have boundaries with my thoughts and I didn't have boundaries with my mouth, then pretty much, boom, guess what? I have problems, they have problems. When we make boundaries and we truly live them out in our head and our heart, our kids get healthier. So let's go jump in what boundary is. We're going to share some of the boundaries of what Dr. Henry T. Cloud and his team goes over and writes. And then we want to see where you can go apply and where we're going to go apply because we're walking this with you as we're going over and doing this. So, what is a boundary? When you look at it from a land perspective, it's literally knowing where your start and your end goes over and happens. So pretty much what happens is if this was a real living room and not a virtual living room, you can see the window near the piano. That boundary for the wall is that's it. And I know where to stop and I know how far I can go over and go. But when it comes to an emotional boundary, which is what boundaries goes over and talks about, is what you're willing to share, accept, and take ownership in your parenting, and then what you're not willing to share and accept, and then take ownership there too. So we have to go over and make a decision and put a line in the sand where we're going to go do and not do. Because again, if we just have no boundaries, we could be parenting great on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we just go and we shoot for the stars and we shoot for the moons. And we're wondering why our kids are not gaining those disciplines, learning how to emotionally regulate, learning how to go deal with the situations in front of them. Because what happens is if we don't make those emotional boundaries, we have the ping pong method. I go over and react. My kid goes over and reacts. They say, I think you're this, and you say you are this, and it just goes back and forth in the arguments. Now, debate is fun, and if you're going to play super fight, that's the right time to ping pong back and forth. It's a fun game. But when you ping pong back and forth with your parenting, basing on how you feel and not have boundaries, you will just go over and go with the whim. And then we wonder why we as a society have problems with our parents, and our kids have problems with us, and we have problems with them. And we truly never have that true intimate relationship. You could also go from another methodology and say, I fix them method, and just try to go over and shore things up and catch the grade. Again, this is kind of like the deck chair mentality, going over and saying, I can fix them. And you do all the fixing, but if you never applied yourself, the kids go over and tend to follow what the parents do and not what the parents say. Do what I say, not as I do. It's not right. You have to do what you're saying for them to go over and live out. Because if you're being contradiction and you're being hypocritical, which I have been several times in my life, especially in the early years until year 7 in marriage, I would just try to fix it in the moment and then get a little better, but never have that transformation, never have that change. Transformation and change, as my counselor I'm going through, and today is it's got to be a conscious effort. It's gonna feel awkward. It's the same thing with the kids as they're gonna go apply this. It's gonna feel awkward, and then hopefully it becomes a neural path and becomes something that's ingrained in their heart, so they go and live out, and then they just vector check themselves, and your voice converts to their voice. That's the goal, is that they go apply it. Because a lot of times we can go over and take things in life, and what happens typically, this happens in churches, this happens in parenting too, that the kids stay in the boundaries when they're with us, and when they leave they go loose and everything goes awry. That's why you see, morality goes down typically from 18 to about 30. This happens in military, veteran, first responder, and this happens in regular families too. Is that when we do this I fix them method, we can get them to behave for a season, but once they're out of us, out of our households, and they leave this living room, everything changes. So these methods can work for the moment, like we were talking about. I can fix them in the ping pong method, but no one wins overall. So this method needs to change a little bit. And let me go over and hide this real quick to go over and change it, because it needs to, for emphasis purposes, we need to change it to this. Is a win-win method. Why are the two W's so huge and the one on the one is so small? You and your spouse. So if you're a dual family, mother, father, whatever type of parenting style that you gotta have both align this. You both are needing to bring in boundaries within your marriage, within your relationship, and start living that out. So then that infuses into your child or children. For me, it'd be like win-win big, and then win-win, win-win, because it'd be 4 kids in there. So both of you have to be taking on this process. Yes, not everybody's always emotionally mature enough to work the process the same way, but if you want the longevity results, if you're a 2-parent family, you need to go both applying these principles. So again, we're going to visit some of these laws. We're not going to visit all of them. So again, you want to go over and go to boundaries.me is a great resource to go over and do that. The first law that we're going to be talking about is actually law number 6. So again, you'll have to go over and read the rest of the book to get the rest of them, because there's 10 and we're just going over 5. Is the law of evaluation. Pain can be a gift. So this particular method goes over and says, I need to evaluate what discipline and boundaries to go put in for my kids to absorb that pain and frustration so they can be well when they leave their home. For example, going over and let's say, like my kids when they're doing team chores and whatnot. If I keep interceding and trying to compliment and I take over the chores and I don't allow them to have discipline, like losing their commission, going over and have not having the individual family time that we have scheduled because we do it 3 days a week, not going over and having restrictive bedtimes, and I go over and I just allow them to go. Well, when pain goes hits them as an adult, they're going to respond in whiny tantrums and taking over and not listening and not being compliant. So for us as parents, we need to evaluate when do they need to feel the pain of the consequences. Because when they do, they might feel pain for a little bit, but it's a gift. It's the same thing as our pain receptors in our entire body. I knew a guy that had no pain in his hand all the way down to his wrist. The thing was is that he never knew when he got hurt. He always had to consciously watch with his eyes on his hands. Without pain receptors, we can go over and get into a lot of damage. Imagine if our pain receptors got shut off. Now, if you're in chronic pain, you're wishing that they did. But the thing is, even with pain, it goes over and knows when things are wrong. If we take all the wrong, then they never learn how to go deal with it. So that's a summary of law number 6. Law number 7 is the law of proactivity. Tantrums are not forever. This particular one is going over and when, for example, let's say Johnny or Susie's playing baseball and is having difficulty playing baseball or sports or math or science, and they have a tantrum, they freak out, they go over and minimize, they walk away from the situation and never go over and deal with it. If we go over and allow the tantrum to go over and happen, and we don't work through that emotional tantrum, they never learn to get past the frustration point to get to actively working out. So the law of proactivity is that we need to be proactively working with the kids to go into the frustration, working through the frustration, and going over and letting them have that tantrum to a point, but not allow them to live in it and to go over and to negate it out. So for this one, I think this one personally is the hardest, is kind of like when you have the baby that's continually crying and or acting out in the grocery store, and you go over and you freak out in your flesh when those parents are letting the kid have the tantrum, but you keep doing your work. The thing is teaching them to go over and to deal with the situation. When we pull them out of the situation, we minimize it, we negate it, we don't go over and deal with it, and we give into that, then we're giving into future, hey, I don't want to do this work, I'm going to go pull a tantrum. And you don't want a 25-year-old going over and pulling a tantrum, and then you're getting called as a older parent coming in. Law number 8 is the law of envy, bringing in the gratitude. We have a very entitled world, and we have a lot of blessings and a lot of gifts, but when the person feels entitled, especially a kid, they go over and they're not thankful for it and they want the next thing, and it leaves them empty as long term, and they're wanting more and more and more and more and more. This law is going over is teaching the child to go over and have gratitude and being thankful for what they go over and have, and to be appreciative of what they have and earning their keep, and going over and having a gratitude of having those things compared to just going and pulling and getting and getting and getting and getting. A perfect example is all my kids want to be YouTubers. It's a quote unquote envious thing. But the thing is that I make them work for that. So then they can be thankful at the end that they went over and did the hard work and not just go jump them in. They have to do the 10-step process that I gave them to go over to work through the process. If they go over and give up, that's on them. But I know they will be thankful in the long run because they did the work for themselves, and they will be grateful for going over and doing that. Excuse me. Law number 9 is the law of activity, balance between chores and fun. This is always hard as a parent, that we can go over and either be all task, all task, all task, all task, or all fun, all fun, all fun. The law of activity says is that there's work in seasons, and we need to do the work to go see the fruitfulness of things and not just take it off. So it should be gradual. to go over. From 0 to 5, there's going to be a lot of fun, and there's not going to be much chore activity. From 5 to 12, there's going to be learning that they learn to go over and balance those chores and then go over and have the fun. 12 to 18 and on forward, it should be, chores are going to be a good chunk of things, but we still need to have fun in the end. Activity is important for us. It gives us purpose. It gives us belongingness. It goes over and keeps idle hands out of trouble in that particular regard. So we need to be practicing that as us as parents, to go over and balance between the chores and the fun. And the last one is the law of exposure. This one is going over and bringing light to the truth. As I had to write a quick summary on this, is that we need to go over and share our feelings and share our thoughts, age appropriate, of course, with our kids on where we're at and expectations on where our boundaries are at. We need to be clear in going over and doing that. But then we need to make it safe for them to share where they're at the same time. Because if they hold in their emotions or tantrum out, it's too much. It has to be a vulnerable environment, but with boundaries, goes over and is freeing in that regard, compared to going over and having being emotional chaos, just expressing and spouting out everything to be done, which I've done several times. And I've had to learn my environment was emotionally free. But the thing is that it was also detrimental, that I knew when they were on their rocker that I was in fear, and vice versa, that I would go over and spout off. And then I brought that in. So there has to be a balance in that in between, is the law of exposure. So those are 5 out of the 10 laws. And again, the Boundaries with Kids book, the newer version with the yellow marker, and they also have an audio book, and you go to boundaries.me.org. It's a fantastic place to go over and expand on these laws, because Dr. Henry Cloud gives it way more justice than I'm doing. I'm just visiting at 30,000 feet, wanting to go over and bring this in the living room as a discussion. So again, one of my questions for you is, did you learn anything today? Do you want to go over and learn more? Again, you can go over to boundaries.me. It's a fantastic resource to go over and to add into your portfolio to say, hey, how do I celebrate freedom in my living room? Well, Boundaries goes over and brings freedom, because then the kids know where the lines are, not in their heart and head motivated boundaries. That's the fantastic part about this book. So our superhero challenge to you, no matter if you're watching this live on the Easy Way wall, going on watching this on Facebook, watching this on YouTube, or watching this in replay in Podopolo, where you can gamify your podcast, and I want you to go over and choose a law to dive into this week. So you can go to boundaries.me to go over and to expand on that law, or you can go watch some of their videos. They have some great resources, and share your insights either on our Facebook page or our YouTube page. If you want to go to the Easy Way wall and go over and put your comments there, that'd be great. Or definitely in Podopolo, we have a comment section of every single podcast we go over and do. We love to have you engage in the conversation. So that is pretty much about it for this particular live/podcast of War Hero to Superhero, helping military, veterans, and first responders transform their lives from the bedroom to the boardroom. And I'd love to go over and invite you. Sorry about that. I was really thirsty. I want to go over and invite you into the conversation. So again, this is always a dialogue, never a monologue. And additionally, if you are struggling in this area of going over and being free in the living room to go over and with your kids, or if it's in another area, the bedroom or the living room, we always give 20 minutes free your first time to every military, veteran, and first responder. And if you're one to take your War Hero to Superhero transformation to the next level, go hit the patreon.com, Thrive Not Survive. And as low as $5 a month, you can go over and become that marriage superhero, or whatever level of superhero that you want to become. We hope this goes over and connects with you and engaging. And if you want to add to the conversation and you want a topic to go over and brought, go over and direct message me. We love to go over and take content that you're looking for to go over and to develop and to go through. And if you have any questions, again, this is always a dialogue. So go over and put in the comments, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks. You guys have a great day.